I had come to the house to collect some papers for a patent application when I found the receipt. I accidentally knocked a file folder off of the desk in our home office. I was putting the papers back when I saw a receipt for a credit card that I did not know we had. The receipt was for a gas station on the opposite side of the county. The date was a day that Jane said she was in her office all day. I knew my marriage was in trouble, if not over. I am Albertino Castellini, 34, and married to Jane Castellini, née Roma, 30. I am not connected, but I know and am related to some who are. We have no children, as Jane said she was not ready. From what I see on the receipt, there will be no children. I am an engineer and inventor. I hold 20-plus patents for a lot of simple but useful pieces of electronic gear that make industrial maintenance easier and more efficient. I am also someone who decides on a course of action and does everything he can to reach the end objective. Jane is an account clerk with a local CPA office. Her job does not call for her to leave the office. She insisted on working, even though I had more money than in some minor cities. She said that she was not a stay-at-home type of wife. I met Jane Roma when she was 25, and her car broke down outside of my office. She had run her car through a huge puddle and drowned the ignition. I offered to drive her to where she wanted to go. I explained to her that short of replacing the wiring harness and distributor cap, she would not be driving her car until everything dried out. She finally agreed. We then pushed the car into the parking lot, and I took her to the office where she worked. I agreed to pick her up when my day was over. I did not tell her that I was the boss and the hired help. I just asked what time her workday was over. When I returned to my workshop, I took the wet ignition parts from Jane's car and took them into my shop. Being inside and warm, the parts dried quickly. When dry, I replaced the parts. I picked Jane up and took her back to her car. When it started right up, she asked what she owed me. As she was and is a good-looking woman, I said that there was no charge, but if she wanted to return the favor, she could allow me to take her to dinner some evening. She agreed. For that dinner, I took Jane to my Uncle Vincent's place, a touch of Italian. It is probably the best Italian restaurant in the country. It turned out to be a great, if somewhat embarrassing, evening. Aunt Celia came out of the kitchen and gave me the "You're so cute" cheek squeeze. Then she said, "Bertie, it's much too long for you to come here. Is this your new girlfriend?" Jane laughed and I blushed. Then Jane told Aunt Celia, "I'm not his girlfriend yet, but I am glad to see that he can blush. I am paying back a very big favor that Bertie did for me." She said Bertie with just a bit of a rub-it-in smile. I just took it as it was meant, a teasing gesture. We dated for 9 months, me exclusively, and I thought Jane said she was too. We had many great times. She never refused a date with me, and on Valentine's Day at Uncle Vincent's, I asked her to marry me. I got a shock when she said she was not ready. I was hurt and asked what was missing that would let her get ready. I was shocked again when she said that she needed to be exclusive to the man she was to marry. I was devastated. I was angry. I asked Jane that if she had not been exclusive to me, why did she let me think she was being exclusive? And when did she have time to date, other than weeknights? Jane angrily came back with, "I never said I was exclusive. I am dating others. You are the main guy, but I am not ready to be exclusive, much less get married," she added. "If I was ready, you would be the one." That really did not make me feel better, I said. "I have been exclusive from the first 2 weeks we were dating. You have been with me every time I asked." "I told you I was exclusive. I wish you had been more upfront with me. I now know where I stand," I continued. "Because of finding that you have been dating others without telling me, I will not be worried about dating you anymore. Consider this our breakup." I walked out of the restaurant and drove back to my house. I did not talk to Jane again for almost 7 months. I never saw her during that time, except at a distance. When I finally got close to her, it was a real accident. I was running down one of the streets in our town. I turned a corner to start running back to my house. There she was, and I fell over into the gutter trying to avoid running her over. In the process of trying to stop my fall, I broke my right forearm and my left wrist. I was in pain and disoriented. Jane helped me up after she stopped laughing. Then she noticed that I was in extreme pain. She called an ambulance and made me sit on a window box that was in front of the corner storefront. I later learned that I passed out a couple of times. The paramedics loaded me into the ambulance. That was the last thing I remember until I woke in a room that had curtains in the typical hospital area. The doctor came in and informed me that they were taking me into surgery, but they wanted to wait until I regained consciousness. He explained that they were not sure why I passed out and were worried about why I became unconscious in the first place. He went on to explain that the wrist fracture was a simple one. He explained that he was planning on using a stainless rod to fix the major forearm bone that was broken in several places. He also said that because there was no internal bleeding and no head injury, he believed that the consciousness problem was most likely from shock. He said that since my athletic activity-induced blood pressure was normally very low, I was much more prone to shock. When I came awake, I was in the recovery room. The doctor told me everything went well, and other than some major scars at the surgical sites, I will be as good as new. He then said that he wanted me to stay in the hospital for a couple of days to ensure that I didn't develop an infection. Once I was in the room, I called my parents and they said they would come into town the next day to visit. I called Jane's parents and asked if I could have Jane's phone number. They told me they did not give that out, but would tell her I called. I did not tell them why I was asking. Just as I got off the phone, Jane walked into my room. She looked like she had been worried about me. At least I assumed it was me she was worried about. The first thing she did was try to apologize for laughing when I fell. I waved it off and told her that it was pretty funny, until we both realized that I was hurt. Then I commented that from now on I would confine my running to a track. Jane then asked what the damage was and what recovery was going to involve. I told her what the doctor had told me. Jane then told me that I had passed out a couple of times while we were waiting for the paramedics. She asked if the doctor had said anything. I explained about the low blood pressure. Jane was in my room every evening. She was there when I had a big setback. I had started talking incoherently. The doctors discovered that I had an infection at the surgical site. It was virulent because of my weakened condition. I ended up staying in the hospital for over 2 weeks. The stitches came out after the infection occurred. The surgical sites were left open to allow drainage. When the infection was gone, the sites were restitched. When I finally went home, Jane was over to my house as much as she could be. She even stayed in one of my spare bedrooms during the week. One evening, I got up the nerve to ask her why. I made a series of major mistakes when I told you I was dating others. I was afraid of the deep feelings I was developing for you. I was also afraid of the feelings for me I saw developing in you. I thought that by making you think that I was dating others, I thought that I could somehow slow those feelings down because of the pretend others. When you basically told me to kiss off, I discovered that I was wrong. The feelings were as strong or stronger, and you were gone. I then said, "Would you like to go out with me sometime, once I am capable of doing for myself again?" "Yes," she said. "I want that very much. Just let me know as soon as the doctor says you can go back to normal. In the meantime, I want to help you as much as you will let me. I'm just about ready to go to the rehab appointments that I need for the broken arm. There was some muscle damage, and I need to exercise to bring it back to normal. The problem is I can't drive, and I can't reserve a taxi for the times I need to go. Could you possibly drive me a few times?" "Sure, I want to very much," she replied. Until the cast came off, Jane was my chauffeur, chef, maid, bath attendant, and ass wiper. I had no way to keep secrets from her. She did go home to her apartment on the weekends. The ultimate embarrassment, my mother, took over on the weekends. My casts were finally taken off after 5 weeks. Jane went back to stay in her apartment. I continued my rehab and found that I enjoyed working out. When rehab ended and I could, I joined a local fitness center. And while I still jog, I use the high school track. There are no curbs to fall off of. When Jane and I started dating again, I only asked her out once every couple of weeks or so. I was still hurt about her non-exclusive ploy. After about 2 months, Jane confronted me at my uncle's place about my apparent lack of commitment. "Why are we only going out occasionally? Don't you want to go out with me?" she asked. "I want that more than anything in the world, but I am not going to be the one to be made a fool of again. So, until you ask me to be exclusive, we can either continue as we have been, or we can split up for good. If you decide that we need to see each other more, you need to commit." That went over like a cow pie on the walking path. Jane, without saying a word, got up and walked out of the restaurant. I did not hear or see her for almost a month. I did not call her, and while I knew she was talking to my mom knew better than to try to intercede. I was at my shop when the phone rang. It was Jane, and she was pissed. "Asshole, why haven't you called?" she asked. "It's good to talk to you, Jane. I haven't called because you're leaving in the middle of a goddamn date, told me that we were through." "Are you saying we are not through?" All I heard was a click as she hung up the phone. If that was the end, then this would be a very short story. Jane called again a week or so later and apologized for leaving the date and for hanging up on me. Then she said words that knocked me on my ass. "Birdie, I love you, but you have an annoying habit of being right all the fucking time. I lied, and you took it. I left, and you took it. I got mad, and you took it. Then you explained why, and I got mad again. You make me crazy because you never seem to get angry even when I hurt you. I love you, asshole. And if it takes the rest of my life, I'm going to marry you. What do you think of that, huh?" "Yes." And then I heard the phone drop, and a deep belly laugh came from the dropped phone. Then all I heard was a click. 15 minutes later, my shop door burst open and Jane jumped into my lap. She kissed me, cried, kissed me again, and cried some more. She was trying to talk and kiss me and hug me and punch me in the chest all at the same time. When she finally calmed down, I got her going again when I said, "My love, I needed the kisses, but you punch like a girl. You need to put more emotion behind the punch. Do you want me to show you?" She started laughing and crying again and finally said, "I am exclusive. Is that okay? I love you. I want you. And I need you." Being the eloquent soul that I am, I said, "Yes." Then I picked her up and kissed her as I carried her to my car. I opened the door, reached into the console, and brought out a ring box that had been with me for more than 2 years. I set Jane on the hood of my car and slipped the ring on her finger and said, "Jane Roma, you are the reason I breathe, the reason I wake up in the morning, the reason I watch the stars at night. I want you in my life. I want you to be my life. I need you as my partner. Will you marry me?" Being just as articulate as I was, she answered, "Yes." We invited every one of our local family to dinner at Vincent's. Once we informed them of our engagement, I was shuffled off with all of the other men for what I assumed was going to be a female battle plan. We did all of the moderately normal things. Jane had a bridal shower, and I had a bachelor party, both of which were tame by modern standards. I heard that there was not a male stripper in the shower, and there was not a stripper of any kind at my party. I did not even get drunk, though some of my guys did. I had 1 beer, and I made it last all evening. We set a date for the following May, and were married by the local bishop. The church, the flowers, and the bridesmaids were beautiful, but I only saw the black-haired beauty who was to be my wife that day. We honeymooned in Sicily and stayed at a distant cousin's villa. It was a glorious month. We did a lot of touristy things, but mostly we enjoyed discovering my heritage. We then spent a couple of weeks at Jane's relatives in northern Italy. We saw Venice, Naples, and a lot of mountains and olive groves. We returned to the rat race in the middle of summer. Jane wanted to start working, and I had no real good reason to complain. We made passionate love at every chance we could. Things were going great until Jane changed jobs and got work at the CPA's offices. Then things started going downhill. She started to pick arguments and denigrate my inventions. The only thing she fought about was that she wanted to use my money to live a rich man's lifestyle. She was pissed when she found out that I was drawing a salary and that my company owned all of the patents, the shop, and my house. I did give myself an unreasonable raise, but Jane seemed determined to spend more than we made. I stopped those arguments when I gave Jane a debit card with a daily limit and told her that from then on, she was to either contribute half of the living expenses or quit working. She ran home to Mama. Mama would have none of it. She called me, and when I told her what we were fighting about, she cut up Jane's debit card and sent her back to me. Things got even frostier when I showed her how much half of the expenses were from the previous month. They were several $100s more than her entire take-home money. The spending was immediately under control. Then Jane started to complain about just about everything. We did not go out, we did not entertain. Things in our love life got frosty also. I had finally heard enough of, I'm too tired, I'm not in the mood. I moved to the guest bedroom and suddenly, I was an uncaring bastard. Jane started drinking every night, not to the point of getting drunk, but 2 or 3 glasses of wine and a couple of mixed drinks. Then when she had fortified herself enough, the complaints and the screaming would start. I was tired of it, but in my family, divorce was not a viable option. I finally put a computer and a large screen TV in the bedroom I was using and went in there and locked the door after supper every night. I found things to do on the weekend, so I wasn't around except for meals. This went on until I finally got a brainstorm and recorded one of her most vicious rants. I took the recording and put it on an endless loop and started playing it as soon as I heard Jane come out of her bedroom for work. I kept it up for 3 days before I heard a knock on the door to what I now thought of as my room. Jane was standing in the doorway crying when I opened the door. She reached up to grab my neck, but I pulled away and she started wailing. All I could understand was, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Jane then sat down hard on the floor and I closed the door. She was still on the floor the next morning. Apparently, she had slept there. I was not in a good mood and just stepped over her without waking her and turned on the rant again. That woke her up and she went over to the sound system and started kicking it until the noise stopped. She turned toward me and said angrily, "Okay, I have been a miserable bitch to you, but you don't fight fair. You just love me and ignore my bitchiness or you make me face it." She continued, "I have faced it, and I will find a shrink or a therapist and see if I can't figure out why I am this way. I know you probably won't believe it after how I have acted, but I love you. I will get help. Just don't give up on me. It is almost too late for that. I gave up fighting your stupid shit when I moved into the guest room. I was not, and I am not, an uncaring bastard, as you have so eloquently said for the past several weeks. I am just tired of you trying to destroy what was a wonderful life. I am glad I finally got through to you, but I won't move back into the master bedroom until I can see some of this so-called love you are spouting." I was on a real rant now. How many of the people you work with have an income of $20,000 a month? That is my salary. You still tried to spend all of that and more. We did not go out or entertain because you spent what money we could have done that with. You want a new car every 6 months, and when you don't get it, you freeze me out for weeks at a time. I am tired of it all. Go see your goddamn shrink, but the bitching and the complaining needs to stop now." Jane flinched when I had started screaming at her. I saw a look of complete defeat on her face. I almost gave in, but I was still hurt and angry. I said, "Jane, I would not even fight if I did not love you. I thought that you loved me, but you have a very disrespectful way of showing it. I think I will have the company buy a condo near the shop and move out until you decide what you want, money or me. I will put money into another debit card for you, and I will pay the utilities, taxes, and maid for the house. But until you stop being a royal pain in the ass and ask me to come back, I won't live here. I will come back when you are not here to take care of the household bills, but that's it. I am going to pack a bag and find a hotel until I can buy a condo. I started to turn away, but thought of one last thing to say. Remember, we are still married, and I will not divorce you, so don't think this is a ticket for you to explore others. You are my wife. Even if you are a poor one right now, you are my wife. I packed several days' worth of clothes and went to my car. As I was driving away, I saw Jane come out of the house and watch me leave. She appeared to be crying. I went to the shop and called the realtor who managed the condo building and asked if she had any units for rent. I realized that I wanted the split to be temporary. Jane called and talked to me at the shop every day. She kept saying she was sorry. After about a week, she asked when I was coming home. I asked her when and if she was going to stop picking fights. She said that she had found a psychiatrist and was on a hormone replacement and rebalancing medication and that she did not feel the rages anymore. I said I would be home for 2 days this weekend as a trial. If I noticed a positive change, I would stay. I did say I would not be staying in the master bedroom and that the guest room door would still be closed when I was there. She seemed pleased and said that she would see me this coming weekend. I arrived on Friday afternoon and started cooking a meal to have ready when Jane came home. When that crisis was over and the medications took hold, Jane became the Jane I married. But then the bubble burst when she said, "Now that you are back and the meds are working, I am going to stop going to the shrink and—" I held up my hand to stop her. She looked at my back as I walked into the guest room and started to pack my clothes. Jane came in and saw what I was doing and asked, "Where are you going?" I thought we had gotten over my bitchiness and anger. I stopped what I was doing and looked at her. She saw the tears and just sat down on the bed, looking lost. I started. "Jane, my love, I will not live here if you quit going to the doctor. You still need to learn that the sun does not shine out of your ass. Your shit stinks as bad as mine does. You are not all better. You're better, but you are not all of the way back," I went on. "I have not joined you in our marriage bed, have I? I won't until I am sure the shitty way you have treated me this past year is totally over." With that, I turned and continued with my packing. Jane sat on the end of the bed silently crying. I almost rushed over to hug her, but then I remembered that according to her, I am an uncaring bastard. I finished packing and drove to my workshop and sat out on the cot I had purchased as a fallback if things did not remain on an even plane at home. Back to the receipt. When I first saw it, I thought that Jane was going back to her doctor again. But then the area the gas station was in was further from the doctor's office than our house was, and it was also in the opposite direction. I called Uncle Vincent. He told me to stay near the phone. About 15 minutes later, the phone rang and I recognized the voice of the president of the security company that I used to watch my shop. She told me that my uncle had called and she asked what I wanted to find out. She went on to say that her company also does investigations. I asked her to have her people follow my wife for an undetermined time. I wanted weekly reports, audio, video, still photos, and written documentation. I explained that I was not looking for ammunition for a divorce or revenge. I just wanted answers. For 3 weeks, there was nothing out of the ordinary to report. Then the next week, Jane did not go back to work after lunch on Friday. Instead, she went to a motel near where the receipt said she had purchased gas. She got a room, and about 10 minutes later, one of the partners in Jane's firm arrived and joined her in the room. About 3 hours later, the man left. 25 minutes later, Jane left and drove home. The written report identified the man as Carl Dorfman, 33, and married with 3 kids. He is a senior partner in the firm. That week, there was not a chance to obtain any intimate photo or video evidence. I got proactive. I bought the motel and told all of the day desk people to put my wife in the same room the next time she signs in. They were not to rent that room to anyone except my wife. I had some cameras and microphones installed in the room. They covered everywhere except the bathroom. I also had video coverage of the front desk, but I made sure that there were prominent signs displayed all over the lobby telling people that they were under video surveillance in all of the public areas and grounds. The signs stated that this was for the safety of the public. Surprisingly, business at the motel declined about 15%, but the decline did not include my wife and her lovers. Yes, that is right. Lovers. She was spending afternoons with all of the partners, including the female partner. The video was actually pretty boring, except with the female partner. When she was with her, Jane was the aggressive partner. The audio was interesting. It seems that the partners were blackmailing Jane with threats of prosecution because she took a small amount from a client's account. She had been used as a toy for just about the entire time she was a bitch to me. After 2 weeks, I had seen enough. I stopped the investigation and had all of the reports and other information. I called Uncle Vincent and asked him to contact some friends and take care of the partners. I did not want Jane to be hurt. I explained that I would deal with her. The partners and their firm started to have some setbacks. The 3 married partners were suddenly dealing with divorce. The lesbian partner was involved in an altercation with an aggressive lady and had several injuries before the fight could be ended. One of the male partners was mugged coming out of a bar. Another was involved and injured in a hit-and-run accident. The 3rd male partner, Mr. Dorfman, was hurt during an armed robbery at his apartment after his wife kicked him out. The firm lost most of its clients when some of the videos, Jane's face was pixelated out, were sent to their accounting offices. Jane did not get off clean. The embezzlement was disclosed to the police, and she was convicted of it. She got a 5-year sentence and had to make restitution. She hung herself in the city jail before she could be transported to prison. It happened after I visited her and showed her some photos from my cell phone. I am in therapy for anger management. I did not want her dead. I just wanted a loving, faithful wife. I will go to my grave missing the laughs, the times we spent together, and all of the good things we did and had together. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.